thrilled to actually have director Ivan Cavanna. Welcome, Ivan. It's
thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Now, let's take it through the whole thing. You're not really a horror director, are you?
Well, I made one horror film back in 2007 called Tin Can Man. I love the freedom of it. I love the freedom of the genre, you know. I love that you can do absolutely anything. You can push the sound, the picture, the editing to absolute breaking point almost, you know. And I was just dying to get back to it. I wanted to make a film about a cinema archivist, you know, and I always thought that would be a great character for a film. For me, because he's a cinema archivist and because he knows absolutely everything about cinema, and at the beginning of the film he talks about horror films, for me then his nightmares would be influenced by horror. So the film is very self-aware in that way. I wanted it to be a visceral cinema experience, and people have said that's what it was, you know.
It's a very striking looking film.
I wanted it to look maybe as if it was made in the 70s or something, you know. We used a lot of lenses from the 70s to give that old filmic look. I wanted to go between different film stocks and go back to digital then. So most of the film is shot on the red Epic, and the rest of the film is shot with a hand-cranked camera from 1915. We ran some 35mm film through it, and it just came out, and it looked exactly like those old films from 1905, you know.
The toilet is just like, I mean, that must have been a real fun to dress.
Well, it was an actual toilet. That's what's the most disgusting thing.
I wasn't thinking you were going to say that.
We did dress it slightly. We made it worse than it was, but really we didn't have to add much to it. It was absolutely disgusting, you know. And we had to shoot in there during the hottest day of the year in Dublin, and the stench was just unbelievable, you know. Right. It was absolutely disgusting, but beautiful, perfect for the film, you know.
It's me with Ashley C. Williams. We were delighted to have her before with The Human Centipede, first sequence. And she's back again with Julia, which is, I think, a terrific film. Although it looks like it's a typical rape revenge movie, it actually goes way beyond all that. So how was it pitched to you?
So before I read the script, the director's statement was sent to me on why he wrote the film. It was his sort of journey of awakening into himself that kind of put this idea into my head where I was like, wow, you know, I feel I can really, really relate to his experiences, and this girl, Julia, actually, I really, really related to.
I think it's got a very, very strong, you know, female audience behind it. You'll actually get that crowd on your side.
Yeah, sure. I hope so. You know, some people might consider what she does, you know, as evil, but the controversial part of it is that if this hadn't happened to her, she would not have become who she is, which is, you know, this beautiful, powerful woman of complete control.
Were you cast first?
No, I was cast last. I came in very last minute. I was actually a replacement, and it all happened very, very fast. I had to audition, and I walked through the door, and they were like, you know, Matthew, the director, was like, hey, you want a beer? And I was like, what? This doesn't happen in auditions. You know, I was like, yeah, I'll have a beer. I went through it and completely connected to the character and connected to Matthew as a director, and it was just a brilliant match. And they were like, this is Julia. This is who we've been waiting for. So, yeah, lucky me.
It's about a father and son who are squatting in an empty council estate that's scheduled for demolition.
And in this case, there's a noise next door.
There's nobody else around, but they start to hear strange noises coming from the flat next door.
As well as being a horror film, it's kind of a family drama in a way as well.
Tommy, this 14-year-old kid,
a shy, inward character who's been sort of neglected by his dad.
I think that underpins the movie in a way, their relationship.
And along the way, he meets Karma.
A very streetwise, ballsy kind of girl who has this like really soft side.
It's about their friendship and about their lives as they try and sort of uncover what this mystery is.
Somebody described it as a chiller, which is you know, it's a thriller. You're not quite sure what is happening until pretty close to the end.
I mean, when I actually did watch it again, I've watched it before this, and it did give me a couple jumps even when I knew they were coming. So
there's one moment when we did the cast and crew screen, you know, there was a whole place jump.
There was one moment where I completely jumped out of my seat, completely.
So I think there's a subtext all the way through this, which is about urban alienation.
Sort of like Fish Tank meets The Shining, I think. So it's like a Ken Loach film or an Andrew Arnold film.
It's very realistic, very gritty, very down to earth. It's very truthful. The characters are very real.
And then just gradually kind of move into the supernatural element of the story.
That's going to keep everybody on the edge of their seat, but also the twist towards the end. there's a little something in there for everybody.
But the ending's a bit like ambiguous, you don't really know what's happened. I like that. It's like, what's the film with the dream? Inception, it's sort of like that in a sense as well.
There's a great big section of society that you can see walking around which has been forgotten, and so that's really there. But in a way, the film works as a metaphor, sort of trying to discuss that big question, which is, can you really escape from the life that you're born into?
I'm sitting here with the most magnificent Adrian Garcia Bagliano. Hello, Billy. How are you? Good. For people that haven't seen the film, can you give us a brief summary with no spoilers?
Late Faces is a movie about a Vietnam veteran who is blind, and he decides to move to a retirement community. He realizes that there's what appears to be animal attacks on that retirement community that are actually werewolf attacks. So he has to find out who is the werewolf and have a final confrontation.
I'm a huge fan of the subgenre, and you have made one of my favourite werewolf movies.
Thank you. I mean, I was very respectful, and I tried to watch, as many movies and put some references there. For instance, the idea of having Frances Raines was not only that I was a big fan of her in the 80s, but also she was the grandniece of Claude Rains, the first werewolf killer in Hollywood. So, there are references like that.
It's never worked with children and animals. How was it working with the dog?
Oh, it was a nightmare. It was a trained dog and everything, but still, it's an animal and they do what they do.
So the last showing is about a projectionist, a lifelong projectionist that's basically given his life to movies, and he's made redundant because exhibition is changing and everything's going digital.
A young couple who go for an evening at the cinema to watch a horror film and then end up involved in their own real-life horror film.
You sort of have to go through the eyes of Finn Jones' character because he's manipulated by the plot and by me.
He's basically on this quest, this pursuit to save his girlfriend. However, he's being framed as the bad guy, so there's a lot of contradiction and a lot of frustration. And it's just basically I'm just going around a cinema like pissed off and going out of my mind.
The cinema, the actual physical cinema, becomes a character in the movie, almost a monster, in and of its own.
We had the cinema for the entire night, every night for 4 weeks.
It was a bit like being Richie Rich, like having your own cinema. It was cool, I liked it.
That was very hard for the crew because you would have your breakfast at 10 p.m. and your lunch at 4 in the morning.
Because we were in a real cinema, and when you go into the cinema, you can smell the popcorn, and there's like the massive pick and mix thing. I just couldn't keep away from it. So in a month, I must have eaten like my own body weight in pick and mix sweets.
I don't think I want to do another 4-week night shoot, but
except the sequel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I like in a horror movie, something that's real and human, but has darkness in it, like pure darkness. That's the stuff that scares me.
And we lucked out because we had the biggest star of horror.
I'm here with a good friend and a horror legend. Yes, it's the one and only Robert Englund. Robert, so pleased you're here with us.
I'm so happy to be here. I must say, the last showing, I couldn't put it down when I read it. It immediately sort of captured my imagination. It was kind of like a 70s De Palma thriller. And I could almost hear the clock ticking. I knew what reel I was in. I was so happy when I got up to Manchester, because within a day and a half of working on it, I could just tell that Phil Hawkins was this remarkably gifted talent, and I was in good hands.
We're from the same generation, of course, and we love projectionists. I mean, this whole digital stuff.
Yes.
What's this all about? Do you really regret the way that the whole industry's gone, which is what a reflection of your film is?
I think we've turned a corner, and I'll tell you what, I think there's a time and a place for Netflix. I love my binge watching of great cable miniseries now, and I think that's fine. When my hackles get raised is when I'm on the plane and I'm sitting next to some young guy in his skinny jeans and his Halliburton briefcase, and he's watching Avatar on his phone, or Life of Pi, and I just feel Ang Lee cringing, I think we have to embrace this new event screening. We took some children to see Life of Pi in IMAX 3D. And that moment when the camera goes up in the sky and the boy is asleep with the lion on the raft, and you see the entire constellation of sea life reflecting the heavens, and the children gasped, audibly gasped around me. And I think you need to be selective and have a sort of event film going experience.
Originally I thought it was actually going to be in like a classic theatre, you know, I mean, because of the whole concept of the plot.
Well, we were locked in this movie theatre. You know, in the suburb of Manchester. We had it from midnight until noon every day. The irony was that I don't think any of us counted on children's audiences. They go to this early matinee, it's like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. in the morning, and they had that hit, the Despicable Me, the Minions. You know, these giant minions were in the lobby. And so we'd be walking around, you know, Emily Barrington and Finn Jones and myself with blood all over us, you know, at 9 or 10 in the morning, and there'd be all these lovely English schoolgirls lined up with their Hello Kitty backpacks, you know, waiting to see their minions. And I could just see the look on the mother's face. It's like, my God, what's going on here? Here in Chester.